Well, this is a great event, and we're very happy to be here to support the renewal of the energy production tax credit, which we think is so important. Not just because it's the right thing to do environmentally, which it is, but it's a false choice to say that you can either have policies that are progressive in terms of preserving the environment, and then they have to compete with things that are going to help our local economy. They're consistent with each other. And that's what the coalition of people that you see here, and the organizations and the segments of our society they represent are an example of that. We have huge potential in this part of Ohio to really have a strategy which does both those things, supports the environment in a responsible way, and also creates an industry here that is based on clean and renewable energy. And we're experiencing it with the wind right at this moment. But we already know that right now that Ohio's wind power already generates enough to bring electricity to about 100,000 homes, and it already supports about 5,000 jobs in Ohio. But we also know that there's a lot more potential to do even more. There's about 14 projects actually that are in the queue right now that could be made operational if we go ahead and do what's right and support our own project, which we call Project Icebreaker, which has been led by LeadCo, but there's also a coalition. It's not just Cuyahoga County, it's also the city of Cleveland, it's also Ashtabula, Lake, Lorain County, and we're talking about, just in the distance behind me, that within, we could do a 5 to 9 turbine project about 7 miles off the coast, and it makes sense to do it. If you look at the economic progress that the greater Cleveland area made in the past, especially our economic boom in the 19th to early 20th century, is because we took advantage of the resources that we had. We took advantage of the river, we took advantage of the lake, we took advantage of our geographic location. And then we built around that, and we made investments. And we had competitors across the rest of the world that didn't move quickly enough. Well, the same thing is happening now when it comes to wind energy and renewable energy in particular. We're in a competition with other parts of the country and other parts of the world, and we've got to move quickly, and we've got to move now, and this is the time to do it. We know that this project will, not only will it position us better to be energy independent in the long run, but it's also going to create jobs in the short term with about 450 construction jobs in the greater Cleveland area, but also permanent jobs, dozens of permanent jobs after that. It also is engaging the skill set and the talent that we already possess in our local companies here. So there's companies in Ashtabula and Lorain and in Lucas County and Cuyahoga County that, as this project becomes a reality, they have the skill sets already to do each stage of the process, whether it's our universities doing the research and continuing to monitor the results of what we see, or the fiberglass companies that can help create the blades themselves, to companies in Cleveland Tank, for instance, that can help with the tower construction itself, and then all kinds of spin-off opportunities that we haven't even probably envisioned yet. Greater Cleveland is as great as it is because previous generations were risk takers, but in a responsible way, but they looked at what our potential was, and they were entrepreneurs, and they seized the moment. And we have an opportunity to do that here. And if you look at who's represented here today, it's business, it's the public sector, it's the private sector, it's environmental activists, and it's labor. That's an incredible coalition to have a responsible and realizable and realistic plan to develop our economy along the lines of renewable and green energy. One of the assets we have, by the way, that the Cleveland area, city of Cleveland has in particular, is our new congressional representative that's representing now. She's represented Northern Ohio for many, many years, but we're very lucky and privileged to have her representing Cuyahoga County for the first time. And she has an outstanding record on these issues in particular, manufacturing jobs in general, but energy issues and energy independence and green energy in particular. And so this is actually the first time since the election that it's been my privilege to introduce in our county. It's ours now, it's not just my county, it's our county, and that's Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur.
It is my pleasure to share with you as well. and to work with you and everyone gathered here. I want to thank the Sierra Club, Ashe, and everyone today, all of your local leaders, your state leaders, for understanding the future and helping move America and our region toward that new future. Many years ago, a wonderful man named Darrell Stockberger from Wood County, which is one of the counties that I've had the privilege of representing, who was the director of their municipal utility, taught me, Congresswoman Kaptur, Lake Erie is the Saudi Arabia of wind. And when I first heard it, I said, I like this man. And that utility became the first in Ohio to erect turbines to produce power for the city of Bowling Green. And for a long time, the turbines have been producing, and they've been increasing their share of the load in that community. And believe it or not, they built it on a municipal landfill. And people go out there and they take their lunch bags in the warm months of the year and they sit under the turbines and they eat their lunch. Because it was like seeing the first NASA launch when those turbines went up. And I just am so thrilled to be here in arguably the most important city in the most important state, and to say that it would be my great pleasure as one of 535 members of the Congress to support the extension of the production tax credit for wind. For us here in Ohio, when you think about it, I've had the privilege of representing Brush Wellman, and many years ago, Charles Brush invented the first electrified turbine right here in Cleveland. But I actually learned about that history by traveling to Canada on the other side of the lake, where they have a very large historical building where they acclaim the first electrified wind turbine in the country, on the continent actually, and how important Cleveland was in that development. I've been privileged to represent Milan, Ohio, the birthplace of Edison, and I've been talking to them over the years about linking our energy assets across the coast, both conventional and new, and expanding the energy tours that Green Energy Ohio does all along our coast. Selfishly, as the coastal representative from Ohio, there's a vested interest in our carrying through this theme for our region and for our country. We know that solar energy, as demonstrated here, is playing a larger role in our country and in our region, and so we are an integrated energy producer. If you go far to the west in Ohio, if you go to Van Wert County, if you go to Paulding County, I encourage you to take the turnpike and then get off and get out there. You will see massive, over 150 turbines already up and probably doubling that number, a huge investment by BP in that part of the state. I know that Tony Logan, the head of the U.S. Department of Agriculture here in the state of Ohio, has joined us today, and I'm sure you've seen those. And it almost looks like Star Wars. You enter those regions and you can't believe what rural Ohio is doing. And so we see ourselves as connected to the efforts that are occurring in other places. I just wanted to mention a number. By using wind energy across our country, we save 20 billion gallons of water annually. 20 billion in a country that's becoming more water short. That's really, if we look at conventional energy production and what wind power has to offer, that is an extraordinary number to think about. And County Executive FitzGerald has talked about jobs. We know overall in our country we have about 75,000 jobs in the wind industry, with 472 facilities manufacturing components, whether it's the fiberglass that goes into the blades by companies like Owens Corning, or the steel by companies like Republic or U.S. Steel. The role of the steel industry across our region is very, very important, and not to be forgotten. We have 44 states, none more important than our own, in producing the componentry. And the great thing about having ports along the Great Lakes and rail and road is we can ship the blades, which become and the componentry, which become very, very difficult in parts of the country that don't have our transportation systems, and quite frankly, in other parts of the country, you can't get the componentry under bridges. We have all of the intermodal, multimodal investments that make movement of these massive turbines, and they will only get larger, possible. Let me finally say that the amount of funds that are required at the federal level under tough budget constraints for this production tax credit in terms of federal expenditures is fairly small. It's 1 to 3 billion, depending on annually, depending on how it's logged. But if you look at our support to the oil industry, for example, over a number of years, it's over $500 billion when you add it up for the last quarter century. So we're talking about an enormous subsidy that goes to conventional sources. And if you compare, what we really need, as the President says, is a balanced energy portfolio for our country. So I look forward to the day when NASA here in Cleveland, working with the Science Center and all of our engineers and scholars and scientists and business leaders, will develop new types of turbines, maybe two-bladed turbines, that can survive winter months out on the lake, that are actually deployable and not fixed, where you can just bring them in and fix them and push them back out, that we take a look at our confined disposal facilities on the lake and ask ourselves, why should those things be sitting out there and doing nothing? We have 27 of them at a minimum along the lakes, and they are underutilized assets that belong to the people of the United States. Why shouldn't we think creatively about new types of wind turbines that meet the environment in which we live, its requirements? And we're doing this out here today so we can feel that this is the Saudi Arabia of wind, and we truly are. If you look at a wind map of the United States, if you look at that, and actually of our continent, we are truly atypical. We have a resource that does not exist in other places. So I'm just thrilled to join you today in support of the extension of the wind production tax credit, and I thank all of those who are joining us today who can see the future and help to build it. Thank you so much.
Good morning. My name is Alex Edwards, and I'm an engineering student at Cleveland State University. 2 years ago, I moved to Cleveland after struggling to find consistent work in the automotive field in Michigan. I had always been interested in renewable energy, and particularly wind energy. I knew it was time to go back to school, and I knew I wanted to work in renewable energy, so I began to research schools with a focus on wind. I kept coming back to Lorain County Community College in Erie, Ohio, and their wind turbine technology program. I kept reading about offshore wind in Cleveland and how much the manufacturing sector here was growing to accommodate renewable energy in Ohio. To me, it was clear that the best choice for me was to utilize my technical background and experience and build a long-term career in wind. Today, I am a proud graduate of Lorain County Community College. Through my experience there, I had the opportunity to meet many other like-minded people who are passionate about wind energy. Many people who wanted to work on wind turbines firsthand. And through the program, I was able to do just this. Through the program, I was able to work on many of the wind turbines across Northeast Ohio, including the Vestas that's before you today here at the Great Lakes Science Center. I was also an intern at a local company in Sheffield Village, working on a prototype wind turbine gearbox that is more efficient in transferring power and lighter than other gearboxes currently available in the marketplace. I love the complex mechanical and electrical aspects of wind turbines, and I want to continue to work on them. Upon graduation from LCCC, I transferred to Cleveland State University. I wanted to take my hands-on experience and pair it with an electrical engineering discipline because I hope to one day create new innovative turbines. I was particularly interested in Cleveland State University because of the wind research taking place. I read countless articles in both local and global publications about the rooftop design on campus at Cleveland State and the newly constructed turbine at Progressive Field. I was extremely excited when I saw both of the turbines on the cover of publications at the annual American Wind Energy Association conference in Atlanta, Georgia this past summer, with almost 25,000 people from around the globe in attendance. In my short time in the area, I've seen so much enthusiasm surrounding wind energy and the new wind turbines being installed around Cleveland, and with the progress towards offshore wind. And with those opportunities, those opportunities will only continue if the PTC does not expire at the end of this year. The U.S. wind industry has grown exponentially over the last several years and has led to many new jobs. Many of my classmates at Lorain County Community College have found employment in the wind industry upon graduation from our training program here in Erie, Ohio. But this has meant traveling to places like Iowa, Kansas, and Minnesota, far from their families in Ohio. While in the future, I would like to see an expansion of wind turbines right here in Northeast Ohio, so that more people can graduate from local turbine maintenance programs and stay in this area to work on turbines. I'm still proud that in the meantime my classmates have found good paying jobs installing and maintaining wind turbines. These jobs are all in jeopardy if the tax credits are allowed to expire. The PTC is crucial to keeping myself and my classmates employed and allowing us to support our families. Thank you so much.
My name is Lee Geis, a proud third-generation steelworker, currently on loan to the Blue-Green Alliance. Launched in 2006 by the United Steelworkers and the Sierra Club, our unique labor-environmental collaboration has grown to include 10 labor organizations and 4 environmental organizations, uniting 14 million folks in pursuit of good jobs, a clean environment, and a green economy. The production tax credit works. Since it was instituted in 1992, the U.S. wind industry has gone from nothing to 75,000 workers around the U.S. The PTC has helped to establish the wind market in the United States 20 years ago. However, history has shown us that when it's been allowed to expire, as it did in 1999, 2001, and 2003, the U.S. wind market stalls and jobs are lost. With no orders for U.S. wind manufacturers for 2013, this industry and its workers are facing yet another bust cycle. Already this year, the wind industry has lost jobs affected across the country. 165 workers at 2 Gamesa plants in Pennsylvania have been furloughed. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, 167 jobs lost. 234 jobs in Little Rock, Arkansas. 30 jobs in Heinsberg, Vermont. 90 jobs in Pueblo, Colorado. Clipper Wind Power has announced layoffs for 174 of its 500 workers across the country, just to name a few. We'll get it together. We have a choice here in America. We can embrace new technologies that are cleaner, better for our health and our environment, and will make our country energy independent, or we can let good jobs die. 37,000 jobs will be lost across the U.S. if the production tax credit isn't extended, and America will lose out on good, clean energy. We will continue to fall behind countries like China and Germany, who are investing significantly into these sectors and have comprehensive policies to ensure their growth. Wind turbines consist of 8,000 parts and 200 tons of steel. And when you consider that since 2005, the domestic content in American wind turbines has grown from less than 25% domestic content to 60% in 2011, that's a lot of good jobs for workers. Congress must act now to prevent thousands more from receiving a pink slip instead of a paycheck. The Blue-Green and the production tax credit is an important component of the Blue-Green Alliance's Jobs 21 plan, which focuses on creating the jobs of the future and making our current jobs more secure in industries that will drive economic growth and environmental sustainability for years to come. We need Congress to renew the production tax credit to save and create thousands of more good jobs. It really is a no-brainer. Right here in the great state of Ohio, we rank 4th in wind industry employment, largely due to our strong manufacturing base. And up to 6,000 Ohioans are employed directly or indirectly by the manufacturing industry. And this is where I like to tell my own little personal story. The mill I come out of, right down outside of Canton, Ohio, where we anneal, pickle, and roll to gauge a product called titanium. One of the end-use products for that titanium? The hubs for the windmills. The PTC is vital into creating strong U.S. renewables market with clean energy manufacturing jobs, just like mine. Long-term extension of the PTC is absolutely necessary to allow the U.S. wind sector the time it needs to grow, so it can compete with other clean energy sectors and other nations. Extending the PTC and renewing the 48C tax credit are necessary, and we will continue to urge Congress to act. Thank you.
It's very fitting that I'm here today. I was just in Arizona last week at the OWEA, American Wind Energy Association's Fall Symposium in Phoenix. And there's what usually is about 700 to about 1,000 members that are present, mostly officers of these companies. We're only down to 300. And it's due to scarce budgets, but also a huge fear of what's going on with the future of our industry. The production tax credit being the staple of all conversations. So it's wonderful to be here today, and to, as the sign says below, we have another voter. My vote's been there, so it's wonderful to see you participate now, Congresswoman. Thank you. So good morning. I would like to, of course, thank Congresswoman Kaptur's office, as well as the Sierra Club, for having me be here today. In just a few moments, all I'd like to do is share with you my experience, both personally and professionally, in the wind industry and my company, Cardinal Fastener. Cardinal Fastener began as a manufacturer for safety-critical fasteners, such as these. Nice big ones, since 1983. Our fasteners are used in industries across the world: agricultural, construction, mining, oil and gas, wind turbines, transportation. Pretty much any critical structure you'll see, we have fasteners. In fact, the World Trade Center, the new towers, we're doing a lot of work on there as well. And a lot of what we have done in those years has really focused our company to deliver what we promised our customers. And that's high quality, fast delivery, and a great service that's unmatched. In 2007, we began working with a distributor in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, who was supplying Clipper wind power. They found themselves in a need. Uh-oh, I'm missing about a couple thousand screws. Where do I get them? Well, there's one place to go to when you're in that bind: Cardinal Fastener. We were awarded the opportunity and later given the order, which was a wonderful feat. It was only shortly thereafter, for the next several months, our relationship with this distributor continued to grow exponentially as we pursued being a partner in a high-velocity supply chain situation. Initially, my team and I had uncertainties about the health and stability in the wind industry. For Cardinal, business was growing quickly, but it seemed to be one of those things your parents always warned you about. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. However, I was committed to investigate and educate myself, as well as my company, on the wind industry. In 2008, our management team decided to move forward, committing both our company and our associates to a paradigm shift. We were going to adopt wind as our new growth market. In an environment where many companies saw the wind business as a fad, we saw it as a stable and growing market with bipartisan support. As Cardinal grew in the industry, serving as the leading manufacturer in North America, we were also expanding our customer base. Turbine manufacturers and Tier 1 suppliers from across the globe began to locate and construct new facilities in the U.S. And at that time, Cardinal was the only approved supplier capable of meeting those European specifications. As a result, in 2010, Cardinal received the Supplier of the Year award from OWIA. Not only was it a great honor and a huge award on myself and our company, but it also reinforced our core competencies of quality, domestic manufacturing, and service. As with any great growing business market, there are positives seen outside of our walls. Cardinal's hypergrowth in the wind would not have been possible if it wasn't for our suppliers and outside sub-tier suppliers. From a steel mill in Michigan, heat treatment and Mentor, coaters both in Ohio and Indiana, as well as third-party testing laboratories, we aided in the individual growth of these businesses as well. In 2010, we estimated that for every job Cardinal created, we were creating 3 jobs outside Cardinal. What amount of growth you may think that is? Well, in 2007, when Cardinal began the wind industry, we were approximately 37 associates. By the summer of 2010, we were just close to 60 associates, working 2 full shifts. A ripple effect of up to 65 additional jobs created outside the walls of Cardinal. Our growth not only meant revenue for our company and its associates, but it was fueling our local economy. We were creating jobs, turning the Rust Belt into a green belt. Wind is a global source of energy. It is clean, it is renewable, and it is domestic. Here in the U.S., we have been dubbed the Saudi Arabia of wind. The U.S. has more capacity than any other country in the world to fuel our electricity needs. And today, with 50 gigawatts of wind energy installed, we're supplying just only 2% of our country's demand. Our aggressive plan to have 20 to 30% of our energy consumption come from wind will happen. Yes, wind is a clean source of energy. It creates energy independence and reduces our dependency on foreign oil and provides national security. More importantly, it creates manufacturing jobs. Today there are close to 400 companies and more than 4,500 jobs in Ohio currently supplying the design, fabrication, construction, and transportation of wind turbines. If companies across the state can experience growth such as Cardinal has witnessed, imagine the amount of jobs we can continue creating in our country and here in the Buckeye State. If in the years to come, I look forward to witnessing and participating in the continued growth of our industry. To achieve success, we, the people of Ohio and our country, need to make a commitment similar to Cardinal's. A paradigm shift in our country's energy portfolio, increasing the deployment of renewables and creating manufacturing jobs both locally and nationally. A blue today for a green tomorrow. With the help of Congresswoman Kaptur, I look forward to her contribution committing Northern Ohio to the growth and longevity of the wind turbine industry. The Congresswoman's tenure in the House of Representatives, combined with her diverse background of participating on several committees responsible for steering our country, I know her support is powerful. Congresswoman Kaptur, on behalf of Cardinal and its associates, I'd like to thank you for your support in the wind energy industry and the PTC. We are here to support you today and tomorrow and our economy 1 megawatt at a time. After all, the first wind turbine to generate electricity in the world was invented in Cleveland by Charles Brush over 100 years ago. His legacy continues and begins with you. Thank you and good morning, and this is my gift for you as our staple moving forward.
After listening to the crew this morning, I have to figure out what to say because they said everything I was going to say about how great things are. But I want to tell you a couple of stories. Won't take more than a half an hour, and it'll kind of frame things. But if you walk into the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base Museum in Dayton, the greatest museum in the world when it comes to aircraft, there's a sign on the wall and it says, "Those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it." And I think that when we think about the PTC, that's a pretty relevant issue. Let's talk about the wind industry. We talked about Charles Brush. Well, the modern wind turbine was invented at NASA Lewis, which is now NASA Glenn Research Center. And we owned that technology. We owned the engineering. We owned it all. And at the time, there was a lack of policy to produce a production tax credit. And that intellectual property migrated to Europe. Now, when we talk about the 75,000 jobs we have in this country, we look at Europe and we go, there's only about 375,000 jobs in Europe in the wind industry. The majority of the profits, the engineering, the manufacturing is all centered in Europe. Now, we're doing well because we bring some of those jobs here, but imagine if we kept that industry, what we would look like today in this country. Okay, that's story number one. Story number two is, at the same time in this country as we invented wind energy in Cleveland, there was another group funded by the Department of Energy, and they were doing this crazy stuff called drilling into shale and trying to figure out what to do with it. And what was really fascinating is when you listen to the story of these guys like George Mitchell and company, they said, you know, we're having a great time. We have no clue if this is going to work. So fast forward, what happened is the federal government gave 22 years of uninterrupted tax credits to that industry. And Ohio today is the beneficiary of thousands and thousands of jobs. It's going to grow. The country is the beneficiary of millions of jobs because the government followed up with a consistent policy to allow an industry to grow. That's how we should be thinking about the production tax credit for wind. This is a way to ensure our future, and that offshore wind, solar, any of the renewable technologies center in Ohio, and we become the beneficiary of those jobs. Thank you very much.